Growing up sure can be scary. Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 coming-of-age horror movies. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at horror films that feature plots focusing on the coming-of-age story of a young protagonist or a group of children, or teens. Number 10, The Company of Wolves.
What do you know about my kind?
My granny told me plenty.
The male-dominated werewolf movie genre may not be the most obvious place to find a strong female character, but there's a strong narrative of empowerment beneath the surface of this mid-80s horror flick. Directed by Neil Jordan and based upon a short story by screenwriter Angela Carter, The Company of Wolves feels like a loose reinterpretation of the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Our heroine, Rosaline, may find herself staring down the snout of a wolfman in the film, but she never succumbs to the stereotypical damsel in distress tropes, instead showcasing her independence as a fully fleshed out character and a woman of agency.
All the better to eat you with.
Number 9, Jennifer's Body.
You're gross.
Friendship is an important part of the high school experience. During these years, one hopefully forges bonds that will last for years to come. But what happens when friendships become lopsided? Jennifer's Body explores this question by examining the relationship of Megan Fox's Jennifer and Amanda Seyfried's Anita. It's no accident that Anita's nickname is Needy. She's a clingy friend who struggles to maintain an identity separate from that of her popular friend. But the alpha and beta female friendship dynamic isn't the only coming-of-age element to this story. Jennifer's possession also feels like puberty running rampant. This film feels very high school, and that's what makes it work.
You're a jerk. Wow, nice insult, Hannah Montana.
Number 8, The Craft.
Now is the time, ours the hour, ours is the magic, ours is the power.
High school can be a real witch. The Craft is fondly remembered by kids who first caught this teen horror flick back in the late 90s. The film starred some of the decade's hottest talents, including Neve Campbell, Fairuza Balk, and Robin Tunney, and sought to capitalize on the growing popularity of Wicca and witchcraft in the mainstream. While the authenticity of the film's magic is certainly debatable, The Craft also delves into other subject matter, such as the pressures of fitting in during those all-important high school years. There's a certain camp appeal to the whole thing, but The Craft nevertheless remains a memorable example of 90s teen horror with charm to spare.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Number 7, Picnic at Hanging Rock.
Doomed? What's that mean, Irma? Doomed to die, of course.
There's nothing camp about our next pick, the beautiful, haunting, and dreamlike Australian film, Picnic at Hanging Rock. The story follows a group of girls and their teacher who go missing while exploring a rocky area for an afternoon picnic. Picnic at Hanging Rock combines ethereal atmosphere and evocative music to memorable effect as the mystery unfolds. But it's the film's themes of sisterhood and sexuality that make it one of the most unique examples of the coming-of-age trope within the horror genre. Don't look for easy answers or neatly tied up plot threads here, but instead dive in head first, and let Picnic at Hanging Rock wash over you like the tide.
A surprising number of human beings are without purpose, though it is probable they are performing some function unknown to themselves.
Number 6, The Lost Boys.
Hey, man. Read this.
I told you, I don't like horror comics.
Think of it more as a survival manual.
What better way to bond with your friends than by hunting down a group of teenage bloodsuckers? The Lost Boys was by far one of the coolest horror comedy films of the 80s, an effort drenched in the sort of hyper-stylized music video aesthetic beloved by the MTV generation. Director Joel Schumacher delivered his defining cinematic statement here, as the film not only delivers the fun and scares, but also provides genuinely likable young characters. The film explores childhood friendship, alienation, and youthful rebellion without ever becoming too heavy-handed, making the final product something that's fun, but more than just popcorn fare.
It's too late. My blood is in your veins. So it is mine!
Number 5, It Follows.
Actually, I'm going out tonight. That guy? I like him. Me too.
Love and sex can be confusing for even the most well-rounded teenager to figure out, but what happens when you throw a murderous supernatural entity into the mix? It Follows was a runaway horror hit for writer-director David Robert Mitchell, a film that was simultaneously throwback nostalgia and forward-thinking, cutting-edge chic. The film utilizes themes of sexually transmitted diseases, shame, and stigma to tell its story of a shape that attaches itself to one person after a sexual encounter. The entity moves murderously on down the line, unless that person puts distance between themselves and the shape by having sex and passing that sexual curse along to someone else.
Somebody gave it to me, and I passed it to you.
Number 4. Gingersnaps.
I'm slitting my throat. You should definitely hang.
It's not entirely uncommon for some teenagers to obsess over or become preoccupied with death. Gingersnaps faced this fear of mortality head-on, and in doing so, became something of a cult hit. The film focuses heavily on themes of menstruation and puberty to tell its story of two sisters, one of whom ends up becoming a werewolf. The actors have great on-screen chemistry, and John Fawcett's direction makes Gingersnaps stand out from the rash of post-Scream slasher clones and teen horror embarrassments. Instead, the film spawned a franchise, proving that young adult horror need not be dumbed down to be successful.
I'm a goddamn force of nature. I feel like I could do just about anything.
Number 3. It. Sure, it may have been Pennywise the Dancing Clown that first drew people to this 2017 take on the classic Stephen King story, but the true success of It lies at the feet of its likable and talented young cast. The film brought together some of the most charismatic actors of their generation to tell King's story, and it's their relationships with each other that holds it together for most of the film.
I thought you said you wanted to get out of this town too.
Because I want to run towards something, not away.
I'm sorry, who invited Molly Ringwald into the group?
The Losers Club doesn't seem to belong anywhere else but with each other, and they probably wouldn't want it any other way. We certainly don't.
Just so you know, I never felt like a loser when I was with all you.
Number 2. Let the Right One In.
Du stannar under vattnet i 3 minuter.
Being bullied is a horrible thing for anyone to go through, but it can be particularly traumatic when it happens at a young age. Let the Right One In explores these feelings of inadequacy and awkwardness, while also touching on first love, as well as the dark and horrifying theme of pedophilia. The relationship between Oscar and the vampire Eli is legitimately sweet to watch, even though we know how vicious and brutal she can be when put to the test. It's a film of extremes, swinging quickly from quiet moments of intimacy to flashes of horror, but it's an effective and moving experience start to finish.
Jag dödar inte folk.
Nej. Men du skulle vilja. Om du kunde.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
Alucarda! Alucarda, please! Alucarda! Alucarda, stop it!
Some hero. Number 1. Carrie.
Carrie! This is Carrie! Carrie, please, come on! Now relax, calm down!
Carrie is a certified horror classic, a film that explores the darkest sides of abuse, bullying, and religious fanaticism. Brian De Palma touched upon many of the tropes we've been mentioning throughout this list back in 1976, drawing parallels between emerging sexuality, menstruation, puberty, and just how scary some of those moments can be. Of course, there's also Carrie White's explosive psychic powers, and the torture she suffers at the hands of her malicious mother. With these many themes masterfully woven together, Carrie is the OG and standard bearer of young adult coming-of-age horror. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from MsMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.